Revealed. A 7-year-old's touching plea. Unleashes an unexpected connection with a dog in need. Emma wandered the park, where every breeze carried the laughter of children and the scent of warm pastries from nearby homes. Lush green trees framed her little world, yet the leaves felt heavy with her sadness. The divorce had shifted her universe, leaving her bobbing in an ocean of emotions. While her friends shifted seamlessly between their parents, Emma felt adrift, a solitary island amid a tide of laughter. Her gaze settled on a scruffy dog with soulful eyes, the kind of eyes that reflected her own hidden sorrows. Max was more than a stray. He mirrored the loneliness that unfurled in her chest. Emma wanted to soothe him, to pull him into her world where, despite the chaos, love still knitted together their broken family. She could feel the knot of determination tightening in her stomach. This was a creature who needed her as much as she needed him. With her small allowance clutched tightly in her palm, an idea sparked in her mind. She could save Max. Bake sales. After all, her mom baked sweet treats for the neighbors. The thought thrilled her. It was a plan full of possibility. But as she set up her modest table, selling brownies and cookies sprinkled with hope, the laughter of her peers turned cruel. "What are you doing, Emma? No one wants your lame cookies," they jeered. The rush of shame lashed at her, tearing at her fragile spirit. Each laugh stabbed deeper, igniting her fears of isolation. Still, she fought against the bitterness of their words. She poured her heart into each cookie as if their success could weave away her pain. Yet, for every sale, a seed of doubt sprouted in her mind. Was she enough? Did anyone truly care about her cause? Every evening, as she ate her meager dinner, the half-empty seat across the table echoed her fears of abandonment. Could her efforts to save Max actually transform her own life, filled with change? And then the crushing news arrived. The town was sending Max to the shelter. Every sentence surged like a tidal wave washing over her dreams. Emma's pulse quickened with panic, and her mind raced. If they took him away, she would lose the only unconditional love she had found. Desperation charged through her as she grabbed her bicycle, racing toward the animal control office. She was ready to confront the intimidating man inside. Did he even understand her connection to Max? As she entered, the rigidity in the atmosphere prickled her skin. The officer looked as gruff as they said. Her heart pounded, a mix of fear and resolve. With trembling words, she laid out her feelings. "Please. Max is special. I know how it feels to be alone." Each word tumbled out, raw and real, revealing bits of herself she scarcely understood. Would her small voice carry weight against his hardened exterior? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Time slowed as Emma's fear climbed. His heavy brows furrowed, creating deep shadows over his cold gaze. The tension in the air thickened, wrapping around her like a snare. Could she break through the wall he had built? Deep inside, she knew this wasn't just about saving a stray dog. It was about saving a piece of herself, still bargaining for love amid the shards of her fractured world. Would her courage be enough this time? Desperation squeezed her chest as she waited, her heart hammering against the chance of hope. Emma stood on the precipice of her fear, enveloped in the weight of the officer's scrutiny. Her words hung in the air, precarious as a whisper in a storm. Would he hear the plea beneath her trembling voice? She felt herself unraveling, the gulf between her hope and the officer's imposing demeanor almost too vast to bear. The silence stretched, each passing second weaving deeper into her doubts. Yet amidst the fear, something within her sparked. For the first time she sensed the taste of her own courage, unpolished but fierce. It coursed through her veins. She realized she was standing not just for Max, but for every piece of herself that had been truncated by her parents' divorce. As her heart raced, she summoned memories of laughter, warmth, and the moments where she felt seen and loved. This was her chance to weave a new story, one that stitched together the fragmented fabric of her life. "Please, sir." She took a step closer, steadying her trembling hands on the cold, hard surface of the waiting room's desk. "Max is my friend. He needs me as much as I need him." Every word felt like a lifeline, one she tossed out to salvage both her connection with the dog and her own merit. Could it be possible that in this moment, her courage could bridge the gap between their worlds? The officer's expression shifted slightly, revealing the faintest flicker of curiosity behind his hardened exterior. Still, his voice remained gruff. "Kid, there are regulations. We can't just let a dog go because you say he's special. You understand how this works?" Emma felt her hope dip, a familiar sensation of helplessness rising in her throat. But she remembered her resolve. This wasn't just a fight for the dog, it was a fight for her own voice. With new determination igniting within her, she drew in a fortifying breath, her small frame standing taller against the mighty silence that scrutinized her. "I understand that. But maybe rules can change?" she offered, her voice trembling yet stronger than before, laced with conviction. "Max is more than a dog to me. He's a friend who listens when I feel alone. Just like I'm sure you've had someone or something that mattered to you." As she spoke, the officer's demeanor confused her, revealing shadows of struggle beneath his authoritative mask. She could sense the tugging of his tensions, the hesitations behind the facade. For a fleeting moment, his eyes softened, a crack in the armor she didn't expect. The shift filled Emma's heart with electricity. Was she truly being heard? But the moment was fleeting. The officer's brow furrowed again and Emma felt her pulse quicken. "Even so, it's not just about feelings. You need a plan if you want to keep him." Plan. The word echoed inside Emma's mind, igniting clarity. This couldn't just be a plea. It had to be actionable. Suddenly, she saw it, a way forward. The bake sales, the cookies she had poured her heart into. They weren't just a way to raise money. They were her blueprint, a rallying call to gather support. With an infusion of newfound resolve, she began scripting her plan in her mind, determining to gather her friends, to teach them about not only Max, but about kindness and connections. Before she left, she would prove to this man, and to herself, that she could do more than just hope. This was her moment to build something substantial from the fragile threads of loneliness against the backdrop of transition. As she mustered a determined voice, she realized she wasn't alone in this fight. Her friendship with Max was reflected in her own journey toward resilience. "I will show you that I can make a difference," she declared, finding power in her smallness. The officer's brow raised in skepticism, but her spark didn't flicker. She would not falter this time. As she walked out, heart pounding yet filled with newfound purpose, Emma envisioned rallying her peers, creating a deeper bond through caregiving, not just toward Max, but within the community she had longed for. But first, Emma had one challenge left. A confrontation with her own feelings of isolation. How would she gather her strength and open her heart? Stepping back into the brisk air, she felt the crisp edge of possibility whispering to her. The path lay ahead, tangled but tangible. The breakthrough was just beginning, and she was ready to take the leap into a world of connection and meaning. What would she risk next to save those who needed her? Emma took a deep breath as she stepped out of the building, the officer's scrutinizing gaze lingering like an unwanted shadow. The sun seemed brighter outside, illuminating her thoughts with a clarity she hadn't anticipated. The confrontation had sparked something deep within her, a willingness to challenge the silence that surrounded her. She understood now that the escape from isolation would not come from mere words, but rather from taking initiative and building the connection she craved. Her feet moved briskly down the sidewalk, a rhythm matching the quickened pace of her heartbeat. The idea of the bake sale gestated within her mind, morphing from a mere fundraising effort into a powerful catalyst for change. It was no longer just about saving Max. It was about creating a ripple effect, a network of individuals who understood the importance of connection, love, and compassion. As she walked, a mix of determination and anxiety coiled in her stomach. She would need help to make this plan a reality. Offerings of cookies and homemade treats required not just her own baking skills, but the collaboration of her classmates and the trust of those who might not yet see her vision. The bell above the door jingled as she entered her school, each sound penetrating through her introspection. Would her classmates even care about a stray dog, much less want to help? She glanced around, spotting Amanda, her closest friend. Nervously, Emma approached her. "Amanda, can we talk?" The words came out in a rush, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. "Sure, what's up?" Amanda's attention peaked, and they settled onto the bench in the corner of the hallway, a sanctuary away from the bustle of bustling activity around them. Emma hesitated, nervousness gripping her as tightly as her resolve had moments ago in the officer's presence. How could she convey the gravity of her feelings? "It's about Max," she began. "He needs our help, and I'm planning a bake sale to raise money so I can adopt him." "A bake sale?" Amanda's brows furrowed, and Emma sensed her friend's uncertainty. "Yeah. I mean, he's not just a dog. He listens to me when I'm sad, and I want him to have a home. It's really important to me," she poured out, unearthing an earnestness she hadn't expected. For a moment, Amanda mulled this over. "Okay, that's sweet. But how do we convince everyone else to buy cookies? Isn't it kind of weird?" Emma took a breath, ready now to combat doubt with passion. "It might be. But if we tell them about Max, maybe they'll understand how much he means to me and how much he could mean to them too. You know, everyone needs a friend." Excitement flickered in Amanda's eyes. "So we'll tell them stories? Maybe we could even make some signs?" "Yes, signs and flyers and everything." Emma felt the warmth of hope envelop her as their brainstorm turned into giggles and creative ideas. But as the conversations flowed, doubts began creeping in the back of Emma's mind. What if others judged them too harshly, or laughed at her ambitions? Her courage wavered with every bright idea. What if this plan failed? As they solidified the details that afternoon, Emma's spirit soared. Each phone call and text to classmates transformed her fear into possibility. She felt the seams of her isolation begin to loosen. The grim specter of loneliness was no longer in command. Yet that night, lying on her bed, faced with the uncertainty of tomorrow, Emma wrestled with a more profound conflict. What if not everyone supported her? Would she have the strength to endure ridicule, rejection, or worse, the silent indifference of her peers? In the silence of her room, the wind whispering against the window, she realized her commitment had deepened. This wasn't merely about Max anymore. It was about defining who she was willing to become. As she drifted into a restless sleep, one thought emerged, poised for her to confront. Could she muster the resilience required to turn vulnerability into strength? And as whispers of doubt tried to encroach, a flicker of determination ignited anew, urging her toward the next challenge, standing before her peers and sharing her heart's plea for compassion. How would they respond? Emma knew one thing for certain. Her journey was just beginning. The next day dawned with an unsettling mix of hope and trepidation in Emma's chest. The morning seemed to stretch on indefinitely as she prepared for school. Her hands trembled slightly as she spread peanut butter into the sandwich that would fuel her day. Would this be the day things changed? Would her voice finally be heard? Each step toward school felt heavier than the last. Emma's mind was a battlefield filled with conflicting thoughts. What if she stood up in front of her classmates and stumbled over her words? What if they laughed when she poured her heart out about Max? Yet the image of his sad eyes tugged at her resolve, an anchor in the storm of her insecurities. Upon entering her classroom, Emma's gaze flitted around the bustling room. Laughter echoed off the walls, but it no longer felt like a distant sound. Today, she would be a part of that laughter and joy. Today, she would speak her truth. She spotted Amanda at their usual table, animatedly chatting with a group of their classmates. Emma joined them, her excitement palpable, but masked by the passing anxiety that settled like a weight on her shoulders. "Are you ready?" Amanda asked, her voice laced with both encouragement and nervousness. "Kind of. I just hope they really care," Emma replied, her voice barely above a whisper. As the moments ticked by and the bell rang for class to begin, Emma sat straight up in her chair, her heart thundering in her ears. Mr. Daniels, their teacher, began the lesson, but Emma could barely concentrate. Thoughts of Max spiraled through her mind, each one challenging her sense of self-worth and courage. Determination surged within her, propelling her to take note of the ideas she had outlined for her presentation. "Attention, everyone," Mr. Daniels called, drawing the students' focus. "Before we dive into today's lesson, we have a special presentation from Emma." Emma's breath caught in her throat. The spotlight, once a distant notion, now engulfed her. Everything within her oscillated between the urge to sink into her chair and the fierce desire to share Max's story. She rose, her heart pounding as she walked silently to the front of the room. The class fell silent, eyes locking onto her with various expressions: curiosity, skepticism, indifference. Each gaze intensified her internal struggle, yet she drew strength from the fleeting smiles of Amanda and a few other supportive classmates. Clearing her throat, she began, "Hi everyone. I want to tell you about Max." The simplicity of those words felt both freeing and daunting. As she shared her connection with Max, every anecdote about their quiet moments and the comfort he provided unfolded on the screen of her mind, painting a vivid picture. Some classmates leaned forward, intrigued, while others whispered to each other, their faces unreadable. Emma pressed on, her nerves transforming into resolve as she spoke with authenticity. The words flowed, fueled by her passion and the bond she felt with this abandoned dog. "I'm not just asking you for money," she implored, her voice steadying. "I'm asking for your support, to help me give a friend a home. Financially, it's a challenge for me, but emotionally, I promise it'll create a ripple effect, showing that we all can make a difference." In the quiet that followed, Emma dared to look around. A wave of emotion washed over her as she saw a few students whispering to each other. Their expressions shifted from indifference to contemplation. Even from across the room, she noticed familiar faces igniting with recognition. But then, a sneer broke through that hopeful moment. Mark, a boy notorious for his cutting remarks, rolled his eyes and snickered. "Seriously, you want us to care about a stray dog?" The laughter that followed felt like ice water dousing her earnestness. Doubt slithered back in, attempting to smother her resolve. Should she retreat into silence? Emma's instincts told her to fight back, to confront the ridicule that had haunted her for so long, not just for herself but for Max. As the laughter echoed in her ears, an unknown strength surged within her. "You know, Mark," she began, her voice slicing through the mocking atmosphere, "maybe it's easy to dismiss the things we don't understand, but I believe every living being deserves kindness. Who knows? One day you might be the one looking for that connection." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. She could feel the shift, the impact of her words rippling through the air like a sudden gust of wind. Could it be that her vulnerability had ignited a spark of reflection in others, one that would ripple beyond this moment? With her heart pounding and ears ringing, Emma felt a newfound resolve blossoming. This fight was for more than just Max, it was for herself. But before she could gauge her classmates' reactions, the bell rang, signaling the end of class and the end of her moment. Emma returned to her seat, anxiety racing alongside excitement. She had spoken her truth, but would it be enough? As the students began to chatter and shuffle out, Emma realized this was just the beginning of a necessary confrontation, not just with others but with her own fears. What would come next? Would she be able to press on, to stand tall against skepticism and make her plea truly resonate? The uncertainty loomed, thickening the air as an unexpected figure approached her. Emma's heart raced anew as she met the determined eyes of Amanda, whose grin suggested that something monumental was about to unfold. Emma sat up straighter as Amanda approached, her expression crucial, a blend of eagerness and concern. "You were amazing!" Amanda exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with admiration. "Did you see how quiet it got when you spoke? You really connected with them." The warmth of Amanda's words enveloped Emma, momentarily lifting the weight off her shoulders. However, deep inside, the skepticism from Mark's laughter lingered. Did speaking out truly matter? Was she ready to embrace the potential fallout of her newfound voice? "I mean, I hope so, I don't know if it was enough," Emma replied, her bravado faltering. What if they still don't care? Don't underestimate what you did. You spoke from your heart. That counts for everything. We can keep pushing this, Amanda insisted, her confidence acting as a lifebuoy amid Emma's swirling doubts. We can plan a fundraiser or something, raise money for Max together. Emma's heart raced at the thought. An opportunity sat right in front of her, yet anxiety bubbled beneath the surface. Planning a fundraiser felt ambitious, but confronting her fears about what others thought, a feat she wasn't sure she could sustain. Yet sitting there, she felt a flame kindling inside her. A flicker of passion flickered, igniting a resolve that had lain dormant for too long. Okay, Emma said, the determination solidifying within her. Let's brainstorm some ideas. We could do a bake sale or a car wash. Amanda clapped her hands in excitement. I love it. We can make posters and get everyone involved. Spread the word about Max. This is going to be great. Wait, Emma interrupted, her voice suddenly quieter. What if they say no? What if nobody wants to participate? Amanda's smile wavered, but she quickly regained composure. Then we'll go to the next person. But you need to remember what you just did. You stood up in front of them and spoke your truth. You can do it again. We will help Max together, no matter what. The fierceness in Amanda's encouragement brought clarity into Emma's emotional turmoil. She didn't have to face this alone. The insight shone like sunlight breaking through clouds. She could forge connections, gather allies. And what about Mark? Was she to let his cynicism stifle her resolve? Later that day during lunch, a different atmosphere permeated the cafeteria. Emma's heart raced as she scanned the room. Was she ready to navigate the chaotic energy of the lunch tables, transforming the ambiance from dismissive to supportive? She noticed a group of girls huddled together, laughter punctuating the air. But when Emma approached, they paused, gazes fixated on her. Heart thumping, she took a chance, clearing her throat. Hey, I'm trying to raise money for a dog named Max. Would you like to help? One girl, Ashley, who had shared part of Emma's class history, looked intrigued, sparking a flicker of hope within Emma. A dog? Is he yours? No, he's not mine yet, Emma admitted, anxiety pummeling her resolve, yet a spark of determination propelled her forward. But he needs a home. I want to help him. If we raise money, it would make a difference. Ashley nudged her friends, whispering fervently. Slowly, Emma felt their tension ease. Okay, count us in. We can make cupcakes and sell them during lunch. A thrill cascaded through Emma as she turned to see Amanda looking on, her expression triumphant. Was this the empathetic ripple she had hoped for? Yet, as she engaged her classmates in brainstorming sessions and planning meetings, she couldn't shake Mark's voice from her mind. Had he underestimated her strength? Would his words haunt her during this rise? The remnants of her anxiety intertwined with a profound realization. This was not merely about Max, it was about uncovering her own power and potential, proving to herself that she was brave enough to take a stand. In the days that followed, Emma poured herself into the project. Each interaction became a new test of her courage, and unexpected connections began to form across her classmates. She was no longer the girl in the background. She was stepping into the spotlight, ready to confront challenges head-on. Emma found herself standing at a pivotal moment. As she entered the classroom each morning, uncertainty swirled, but alongside it, a burgeoning sense of belonging. A quest not only for Max but for herself. And then, just as she was beginning to feel anchored in her newfound role, a sudden announcement jolted the school. An upcoming event loomed on the horizon, and it promised to shake up everything Emma had been building. Would her voice hold weight in the face of larger ambitions? The thought left her stirred and uncertain, and as she looked around, she could almost hear the whispers of doubt creeping back in. Would this new challenge catapult her further, or spell disaster for her budding confidence? Emma could only wait and see what awaited her next. Emma stood in front of the bathroom mirror, the fluorescent lights reflecting her anxious features. She practiced her speech again, focusing on her intonation, hoping it would convey the urgency of Max's situation. Her heart pounded as she sank deeper into her thoughts. The school assembly that was to take place next week loomed large in her mind. It was one thing to engage classmates in small groups, Facing the collective gaze of the entire student body felt monumental, akin to standing atop a precipice. She recalled the supportive atmosphere during her recent conversations, the flicker of excitement that had lit up Ashley's face. How could she recapture that? Would it feel as empowering to speak to everyone, or would doubt suffocate her again, like it had done so often in the past? The echo of Mark's derisive laughter cut through her recollections, lingering ominously in the corners of her mind. Fear gripped her throat, squeezing her resolve. "Stop it, Emma," she muttered, shaking her head as if it could push the shadows away. Amanda's voice drifted back to her. "You stood up in front of them and spoke your truth." She needed that truth now, more than ever. Determined, she decided to reshape her approach. Instead of focusing solely on Max, she would open up about her own fears, about why helping him mattered so much to her. Maybe this would work. They could be in it together. The following morning, Emma found snippets of solace in her schedule. She divided her time between organizing discussions and creating heartfelt posters. Each small task was a step toward easing the turmoil inside her. The more she focused on Max, the less time she had for doubt. It was exhilarating to feel connections forming for a cause beyond herself. Something genuine, however. The ever-looming assembly stirred a mix of anticipation and dread. As it approached, the reality of her undertaking began to settle in. Would anyone listen? Would they laugh? The thought sent tremors through her. Those were the very fears she had hoped to overcome. She found solace in Amanda's encouragement, yet still felt unease creeping around the edges of her growth. In a moment of clarity, Emma reached for her phone and texted Amanda, "Can we meet after school to practice? I'm getting nervous." Amanda quickly responded affirmatively. When they met later, Amanda's unwavering support lifted Emma slightly above her self-doubt. They stood in front of a mirror, Emma fiddling with her hair absently as Amanda ran through segments of her own speech. For Emma, the mock presentation felt pivotal. As she spoke, Amanda listened intently, nodding with purpose, her expression a mix of admiration and focus. "See? You're really good at this," Amanda said after Emma finished, her voice an anchor drawing Emma back to reality. "You're passionate, and it shows. Max needs your courage right now." The flattery spilled warmth into Emma's chest, but it was more than that. It was a push to embrace her authenticity. Even as fear continued to hover, Emma felt more prepared. Should she allow vulnerability to show through when she addressed the assembly? Would sharing her struggles with others empower them to feel connected as well? Before she could second-guess herself, she stood straighter, straightening her shoulders like someone who could command a stage rather than shrink from it. As assembly day dawned, Emma stood backstage, heart racing. She heard the murmur of her peers several feet away. Each laugh sent another bolt of fear coursing through her, but also a surprising thrill, as the noise felt like an electric current of potential energy. Just before her name was called, her breath caught, her thoughts spiraling with incoming doubt. Would she really let her voice be heard? The seconds slipped away, and she clenched her fists, grounding herself beneath the uncertainty. The curtain lifted just as Emma stared into the sea of faces, and there, amidst her classmates, she spotted Mark, an unexpected smirk spreading on his lips. She felt a rush of defiance shoot through her. This moment wasn't about him anymore. It was about Max, and the passion that had taken root within her. Summoning every ounce of courage she possessed, Emma stepped forward, ready to speak. But just as she began to share her story, a sudden interruption changed everything. A loud crash echoed from the auditorium entryway, sending a wave of shock rippling through the audience. Emma froze. What had just happened? In that instant, everything she had prepared for teetered on the edge of a new chaos she could never have anticipated. Would she muster the strength to speak against uncertainty? Would the connection she had hoped to create with her audience crumble before it began? Emma could only grip the podium tightly, her thoughts racing. Emma stood at the edge of the podium, her pulse racing in time with the chaos unfolding just beyond the auditorium doors. The once familiar faces of her classmates blurred, replaced by the sheer urgency of the moment. Her fingers tightened around the lectern, anchoring her in the midst of disruption. The familiar fear that had threatened to swallow her whole now twisted into something else. An electric awareness that all eyes were on her, waiting for her next move. Another crash jolted the audience, followed by hushed whispers and murmured concern. The unpredictable energy of the room felt charged, and for an instant, she realized her fear had been overshadowed by anticipation. This was more than just an assembly. It had transformed into a defining moment, not only for her but for everyone watching. What could she do now? She could retreat into silence or step into the fray. Emma took a breath, drawing upon the reservoir of passion that had built within her over the past days. She was there to share Max's story. It wasn't just about him. It was about resilience, connection, and heart. The thought propelled her forward, igniting a flicker of determination. She had come so far, and though she had practiced countless times, this spontaneous surge of emotion could give her words weight. As she leaned in slightly, catching sight of Mark again, the smirk on his face urged her to confront the doubts she harbored. She recalled all those moments in the past, when she had shrunk back, questions flaring about her worth. No longer would she allow the specter of his derision to hold sway over her. Today she would speak, not just for herself but for others who felt unheard and dismissed. "Everyone," she started, her voice steadier than she felt. "I know something seems off right now." The crash had electrified the air, but she needed to redirect the focus. "But while we might not know exactly what's happening behind those doors, I want to share something that deeply matters to me." The room quieted, so she continued, carrying the weight of her intention into the silence. "I want to talk about my friend Max," Emma said, her determination hardening her resolve. "Max is just like many of us, full of hope, dreams, and vulnerability. He has faced challenges that seem insurmountable at times. And this moment for him isn't just about me speaking. It's a reminder of our duty to support one another in times of hardship." Emma could see the flicker of recognition in the faces before her, nods of understanding trickling through the audience. She began to share how Max always stood up for those who were silenced, how he had taught her the power of friendship and reliance in the wake of adversity. Her own vulnerabilities began to spill into her narrative, whether it was the fear of judgment or the shame of past failures. By laying bare her struggles, she began to weave a thread of relatability between them, a thread that tied her to each person in the room. The initial urgency to address the distraction had propelled her into an unexpected territory, the territory of connection and mutual empathy. With every word, Emma found herself growing stronger, fueled by the bravery she had initially felt only in the confines of her practice sessions. She glanced at Mark, who now looked less amused and more contemplative, perhaps even captivated. Just as she reached the climax of her speech, an unexpected groan resounded from the entryway. Emma's heart lurched as she turned to look, watching as a small dog limped into view, surrounded by frantic adults trying to assess the situation. In that moment, everything shifted. This wasn't just about her any longer. The startled gasps from the crowd echoed her rising awareness. The genuine concern in their eyes mirrored her own. Emma's instinct to reach out, for Max, for the dog, for those struggling, overpowered her self-doubt. Leaning into the urgency of the dog's plight, she found her voice echoing in unison with the newfound urgency of the moment. "Just like I'm asking you to help Max," she said, her gaze shifting between her peers and the small creature caught in chaos. "I'm asking you to come together for something greater than ourselves. Let's help anyone who needs it." Was she truly courageous enough to draw from compassion as her shield? Emma's voice resonated as conviction spilled forth. Would they heed her call, unite under this unexpected circumstance, and reveal a side of themselves they had yet to discover? Emma's heart raced as she presented her truth, the whispers of uncertainty fading into the backdrop of hope. The seriousness of the situation ignited a new purpose. She had opened doors to generosity and connection, standing at the precipice of transformation. Yet, as the crowd's attention shifted away from her, drawn towards the new crisis unfolding, Emma felt the gravity of her mission weighing on her shoulders in ways she hadn't anticipated. Would this unexpected shift draw them together, or would she lose the momentum she had just built? As she took a breath, her thoughts spiraled into a swirling mix of excitement and dread. She was at the threshold of something monumental, but the choice remained. Would she claim her newfound strength, or would she retreat into the shadows once again? Everything hinged on her next decision. In the midst of the growing chaos, Emma's gaze darted between the small dog struggling to stand and the startled faces of her peers. The urgency of the moment wrapped around her like a blanket, but there was no retreating now. This was her chance to weave her fear into courage, to use the chaos not as a barrier, but as a bridge for connection. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself. "We all have our battles, don't we?" The words felt heavy yet liberating, resonating with the crowd in an unusual harmony. Emma shifted her focus to the crowd, observing their expressions. Concern, empathy, and a flicker of resolve shining through the initial shock. "Just like this little dog needs our help right now," she continued, feeling her heart race with each syllable. "We must lift each other up when we are vulnerable." Her voice gained strength as she tapped into the shared emotion floating in the room. She could see the way her classmates leaned in, captivated not only by the plight of the dog but by her passionate plea. As she spoke, Emma conjured memories of how Max had fought through his toughest days. When he faced rejection or fear, he never cowered. Instead, he reached out to the people who mattered. Now, a flicker of that same strength illuminated her resolve. "Max inspires me daily, and he's not alone. Neither are we." With each passing moment, Emma felt her limitations dissolve, replaced by a newfound confidence. She couldn't ignore the weight of their silent judgments or the uncertainty that had once silenced her. The arena of their shared childhood fears was now accessible for transformation. The dog whimpered softly, breaking through the tension like a pebble tossed into a still pond, causing ripples of compassion to flow throughout the audience. Emma could feel the shift. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was a shared experience demanding authenticity. "Let's show this little guy that we care," she urged, her voice unwavering. "We need to be allies for one another. Every one of us has faced struggles, whether big or small. Together we can change lives. Together, we can be the ones who make a difference." At that moment, a murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Emma felt it, a collective pulse, a shared resolve. It energized her. The affirmations bolstered her confidence, causing the doubts to tremble at the edges of her consciousness. Then, unexpectedly, a familiar voice rang out. It was Mark, breaking through the wave of energy she had cultivated. "All right, Emma, you've got my attention. But what now? What are we supposed to do?" His challenge hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown down at her feet. All eyes turned back to Emma, as the certainty of her next steps settled like a delicate weight upon her. She could sense the crowd's eagerness for guidance, one that mirrored her own heart racing with urgency. Would she inspire action? Or would her newfound voice sputter out in the face of direct confrontation? Emma hesitated, the finality of her response looming larger than before. "We can start by gathering supplies. If we can find out what this dog needs, I know we can pull together." A ripple of enthusiasm began to spread through the auditorium. Without a moment's hesitation, students began to stand, articulating their intentions, promising to contribute whatever they could. Emma's insides fluttered. She realized the spark she had ignited was beginning to catch fire. But even as excitement thrummed in the air, uncertainty shadowed her heart. Mark's skeptical gaze lingered, and beneath the surface, she couldn't shake the feeling of impending doubt creeping in. Was this momentary wave of connection simply a fleeting response to panic? She wasn't ready for Mark's judgment, nor for the resurgence of her former self-doubt simmering beneath her brave facade. What if the enthusiasm faded the moment this immediate situation resolved? What if she couldn't translate this current momentum into something sustainable? The overwhelming enormity of the potential impact they could create began colliding with her deepest insecurities. Emma's breath quickened as she felt the crowd pulsate with possibility, anticipation twisting within her like a double-edged sword. She was at a crossroads, faced with the pressing challenge of transforming this fragile moment of unity into something lasting. "Will we find a way?" she questioned quietly to herself, contemplating the fragile thread that held them together. The moment felt precarious, as though they were teetering on the edge of something monumental, just before the plunge into the unknown. Yet, it was also exhilarating in its promise. What awaited them if she leaned into this collective hope, forging ahead not knowing where it might lead? Would she find the courage to embrace what was ahead, to stand against the returning whispers of doubt? The weight of her decision loomed, echoing with the urgency of their newfound connection and the lingering unanswered question: how far would they truly go together? The buzz of energy fizzled as Emma felt the eyes of her classmates boring into her. They were looking for direction, a tangible way to transform their collective willingness into action. Mark's challenge lingered like a storm cloud. Would she prove to be the leader they needed, or would she drift back into oblivion? "Let's find out what he needs," she said, her voice steadier now. "If we can get the right supplies, we can make sure he's comfortable and safe." An ember of determination ignited within her. She was feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, not as a burden but as an affirmation of her newfound voice. Emma scanned the crowd, her eyes locking onto familiar faces, Jess with her ever-ready enthusiasm, Tom, who was always looking for a chance to be helpful, and even Mark, whose smirk had softened into something akin to curiosity. Each person represented a piece of the puzzle she was determined to solve. Could they really take this moment and forge it into something meaningful together? "Jess, can you rally some people to check if the local vet can help us?" Emma asked, her heart racing. "And Tom, could you start collecting old blankets and food? Anything that could comfort him?" The tasks poured out of her, each one a stepping stone toward creating a real plan. But as she issued her commands, Emma struggled internally. What if this effort crumbled the moment the dog was gone? Was she pitting her self-worth against the success of a single rescue? What if her peers saw her falter after this emotional high? Mark's gaze still fixated on her, scrutinizing her every decision. It was as if he was waiting for her to take a misstep. The thought unsettled her, but it also pushed her forward. It became clear that this was not just about the dog. It was about redefining herself in the eyes of her peers. "Emma, what if we can't find everything we need?" A voice piped up from the back. It was Hannah, her brow furrowed with genuine concern. Emma felt the weight of that unease settle across the room. "We will find a way," she asserted, gathering strength from the veiled support she could detect among her classmates. "If we all pitch in, we can manage it. This might feel like just a small effort, but it's the first step. And who knows what doors this opens." Suddenly, a realization sparked within her. A flicker of her old self. She had always been the one to step back, letting others take charge. But that was changing. And whether she recognized it or not, she was leading them into unknown territory. Despite the cacophony of internal doubts, a plan started to crystallize. Each action taken would reinforce not just their combined capacity, but also her emerging identity as someone who could galvanize support, a voice to be heard. "Okay, I'll head back after school and I can call the vet about the supplies too," Emma said, a new confidence curling at the edges of her tone. "Let's make a list of what we need. If we can't find it all today, we can still spread the word. Maybe even set up a drive to help more animals in the future." The crowd shifted perceptibly. What had begun as an immediate crisis now bore the weight of sustainable change. She could almost taste the satisfaction of transforming anxious energy into purposeful action. Yet shadows of doubt lingered. What would happen when they had to present their successes or failures after the initial surge faded? Would she be ready to address the complexities of what they accomplish? Emma clenched her fists, reminding herself to breathe deeply. If she could conquer this moment, she might ultimately find herself more than just a voice advocating for a dog. She was becoming an advocate for her own journey, reshaping the perceptions she had long been bound by. As a clamoring excitement pulsed through the room, she straightened her shoulders. "Let's get to work," she said, leading the way forward. But deep inside her, a question simmered and expanded. Could she maintain this momentum when the rush subsided, and what awaited them after today? Emma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the path ahead. Sure, they could find a way together, but would she be enough when the dust began to settle? Emma felt the weight of her ambition coursing through her with renewed vigor, as they took the first steps into the unknown. Each smile, each nod, and every eager voice reminded her that she wasn't alone. The chaotic energy of the classroom surged as students collaborated, determined to help the small dog whose struggles mirrored their own. "Let's add flyers to our school assignments," she suggested to Amanda, who was already brainstorming creative outreach methods. "If we can spread the word outside this room, we could involve the entire school." In the following days, Emma's life shifted dramatically. Her classmates found a rhythm, and what began as a single, fervent initiative blossomed into an entire project oriented around caring, not just for Max, but for any animal in need. Emma became the driving force that turned a moment of panic into a community of compassion. As they hosted bake sales, car washes, and supply drives, Emma honed her leadership skills, guiding her peers with genuine enthusiasm. The fear that had once clouded her thoughts began to lift, replaced by a burgeoning sense of identity rooted in collaboration and connection. She watched her friends rally together, organizing efforts with a dedication she never anticipated. But Emma was not just witnessing the changes around her. She was experiencing a transformation from within. The girl who had once shied away from her classmates and bottled up her feelings learned to communicate openly about her struggles and ambitions. Each time she stood before the crowd, sharing updates and insights about their efforts, she felt a little more empowered. At the weekly assembly, Emma took the stage again. This time there were no interruptions, no distractions, just clarity and determination, grounded in her purpose. The first whispered stories of Max had turned into entire tales of resilience, compassion, and community support. "We've raised enough to get Max into the vet, and we're also looking to establish an ongoing partnership with our local shelter," she announced, her voice steady and confident. The applause that followed filled her with pride and sealed her progress. And then came the acknowledgement she'd long desired. The principal announced Emma as the recipient of the school's Courage Award during the end-of-year assembly. Standing before the entire student body, Emma accepted the award with grace and gratitude. This was the validation she had yearned for, not just to be seen but to be recognized for her achievements, her growth, and her dedication to making a difference. In that moment, everything she had fought for coalesced into a singular sense of accomplishment. She had not only saved a dog, but she had also transformed her own narrative of isolation into one of community and accountability. As Emma glanced into the crowd, she spotted Mark looking on, a newfound respect evident in his expression. The battle she had fought within herself had shifted from a struggle against ridicule to one where she now embodied respect and recognition. There would always be challenges, but she was no longer the timid girl silenced by fear. She was a powerful advocate for those who felt unheard. Max found a home in Emma's heart and her life, but he was not the only one to change through their shared journey. Emma had conquered her fears, proving to herself that she could connect, inspire, and engage with those around her. With solid confidence, Emma stepped off the stage to a chorus of cheers and applause, knowing she was finally equipped to embrace the future ahead. She held her head high, ready for whatever new challenges awaited, as she gracefully accepted that the greatest journey was her own. She had not just built a community project, she had reclaimed her own voice, and her heart swelled with the knowledge that she was capable of extraordinary things. This was not the end, it was merely the beginning. You need to subscribe now to witness more of Emma's inspiring journey and the impactful stories yet to come. Leave a like now to nourish the algorithm and help our community grow. Comment below with your reactions and theories about what happens next in Emma's life. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the love.